90s Carpenter gets slept on more than it should. Yeah, it's not the powerhouse of his 80s run, but even his second-tier filmography is still superior to a hefty amount of genre directors today. But that's a different argument for a different day. One flick in particular that never got the love it always should is his last great entry of the 90s and, well, of his career. An edgy, ever so slightly satirical vampire story that just may be the closest thing to an actual western Carpenter got to make. So same rules as always, grab a drink, maybe an edible. For the children at home, let's mind our language.
Excuse me. Language.
And explore the always entertaining vampires. Word on the street has it that Carpenter had become overly cynical about the film industry, and after the negative reaction to his only sequel, Escape from LA, it seems like he might have been done for good. Now, let's be honest, Carpenter being cynical isn't new, and a big reason why I've always respected the man. He had clearly seen the bullshit and isn't the type to waste his time.
I don't need this anymore. And, fine. Eli Roth and his Hollywood hair, let him rule now. Darren Aronofsky, secretly, I think, hates horror films. Let the geniuses go.
But along came the script and book for Vampires, which the rights to had been sitting with Largo Entertainment, and both which Carpenter liked. So he figured he could make this story work while many others couldn't, and thus gave him a bit of hope. Leaning into the Western themes and setting, he ended the 90s by giving us John Carpenter's Vampires. The 90s were going through a vampire boom, with more classic showings like Bram Stoker's Dracula and Interview with the Vampire, and more monstrous interpretations like From Dusk Till Dawn and Blade. Now, real quick, I should say that the Subspecies trilogy, yes, it ended at part 3 for me, also did this mix, but leaned more towards the creature look with the classic castle setting. Carpenter decided to go with a slightly more vintage look mixed with a monstrous ferocity. Having these creatures of the night be tied to the Catholic Church keeps it a little more old school, but aims to update them in a way that would be more sensible to modern audiences.
Garlic? You want to try garlic? You stand there with garlic around your neck. One of these buggers will bend you fucking over and take a walk up your strata chocolata while he's sucking the blood out of your neck, alright?
Thomas Ian Griffith as Vlcek perfectly encapsulates this. The vampire look is heavily influenced by the romantic leanings of the past, but has the intensity of the newer, at the time, incarnations. I mean, his punch reverse chop literally cuts Mark Boone Jr. in half. It shows respect for what came before, yet tweaking things here and there for a more edgy approach that pretty much always works. And a small detail like having the Master sleep underground as a safety measure gives us maybe one of the coolest awakening scenes. It's Carpenter showing us how to be cool with a simple yet masterfully executed idea. Aiming to make the lead character, in Carpenter's words, to be as savage as the prey he's going after, we get a career-high performance from James Woods, playing against type at the time, and honestly he is both exaggerated, low-key, and always on. Sure, the 90s version of being badass comes off a bit silly now, yet James Woods still commands every scene with an anger and overall apathy towards everyone, and it works wonders.
If you got something else to say, spit it the fuck out!
Sporting a leather jacket in the New Mexico heat, dark shades and slim cigars, like Neo in The Matrix, it's not something that will always be fashionably cool, but goddamn is he not one of the best and most humorous characters in Carpenter's filmography. Fighting with his co-workers, walking away from explosions, and taunting Vlcek as he's about to be burned on the cross. I mean, I could make an entire video of just Jack Crow quotes.
Huh? You get a little mahogany from that, a little ebony? Come on, tell the truth.
Shut the fuck up!
This was your fight, Cardinal. Now it is mine. You're not starting to fall for this half-dead old...
How's it look?
Like another New Mexican shithole.
And it should be noted that Carpenter let Woods try his lines 2 ways. As written, and then with some improvised quips. And he kept most of the improvised ones.
I was kicking your ass back there. Did I give you wood?
Daniel Baldwin, also written as Grumpy with a chip on his shoulder, plays Montoya, Crow's right-hand man who bonds with their captive Katrina after being bitten. And this may not be the most intricate character, but, like Woods, fits this gray area where he's both despicable and very entertaining. They both play off each other well, and though Vampires makes no effort to make them likable, and quick side note, good, not everybody needs to be a saint. Their friendship and professional attitude of doing what must be done adds some nice narrative stakes. And also, one of the best scenes with Montoya is when he's checking into the hotel to hunker down and wait for Crow. We get this gem of a line.
Is that your girlfriend?
No, it's my fucking mother. Give me the key.
I mean, to be honest with you, I kind of want this as my outgoing voicemail.
No, it's my fucking mother. Give me the key.
Now, I tend to agree with the masses that Cheryl Lee's Katrina should have had a beefier part. I mean, you got Laura fucking Palmer, but with the limited role, she owns it the best she can, and let me say here, her acting level to emote and relay information just with a stare is unmatched. I mean, she has these striking eyes that can tell an entire story. One could argue Carpenter has been making Western-influenced movies for most of his career. But Vampires was the first time it's clear that this was his starting point. We are watching a Western vampire tale unfold. We have the sweeping shots of the Southwest, sun-drenched cinematography. There's this filter used somewhat frequently that has a pink hue at the top that is just beautiful and sets the perfect visual tone. Carpenter, known to shoot in scope, always has a wide and gorgeous looking frame, and that still holds true here. His low-key score and the ending at the abandoned town. Vampires lets Carpenter finally scratch that lifelong itch. The concept of a first vampire is a cool idea, and using the church's method of an exorcism gone wrong as the origin of it is quite clever. Now, Carpenter did help rewrite the script, though he doesn't get writing credit. So to be honest, I'm not exactly sure what's from him and what was from earlier drafts, but either way, setting a Western around the origin of vampires mixes as well as rye whiskey and sweet vermouth. And for the non-whiskey drinkers here, that means it mixes perfectly. Something as simple as a blues-laden music cue, or Montoya carjacks legendary Frank Darabont, that just has that sort of sweaty Western feel. Or, of course, that great shot of the team walking towards the nest, a thing of beauty. There seems to be a general consensus that Vampires peaks at the Motel Massacre. Also, a nice touch calling it the Sun God Motel. I don't necessarily agree. I think it's kind of a cheap out for folks not really into the story at hand. Though I will admit that starting off with that intense and wild opening 20 minutes may not have been the best pacing-wise, as Vampires ends up being more of a slow burn procedural about the inner workings of vampire hunters and what happens when they finally meet their match. What comes after the Nest and Motel Massacre scenes are still great stuff, but they do fail to have that sort of wham-bam adrenaline impact. And it doesn't help that we start off with a ragtag group of hunters using a unique method to rid vampire nests only to immediately kill them all off. I mean, let's be fair, that's like an entire movie on its own, and starting off with it kind of hurts what comes after. Now, I don't believe the story of the first vampire looking for a Black Cross artifact being hunted by Woods and Baldwin isn't great on its own. But in terms of style and pacing, it is a bit of a bait and switch, and I think this is a leading cause of hesitation and somewhat negative reviews. And it also doesn't help that we underutilize two of the Colombian gang members from Predator 2, long live El Scorpio, and Shang Tsung himself. Why put Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa in a movie and then not use him? But I think one needs to view the movie on the whole story that is being told. And though it's more methodical in its development, still kicks ass with a few gory set pieces, and of course, James Woods chewing the scenery.
Give me the cross. Let me just ask you one thing. After 600 years, how's that dick working? Pretty good?
Now, let's go with some best scenes. That opening hunt where they drag each vampire outside is brilliant. It may be a tad convoluted and impractical, but watching each one scream to death as the flare visual bursts from their inside is Carpenter being cool as one can be. The Motel Massacre. The drinking, hookers, and overall party vibe. I really don't understand you could watch a scene and not absolutely love it. And to me, it's good to see everybody so damn happy. It's kind of weird viewing it, though, in modern times, because I immediately think, Who's gonna be pissed at this now? But you know what? It's fun, schlocky, and lets you know that after a hard day's work, these guys need to wind down. And also like to invest in the local economy. I mean, I don't know, job savers, if you ask me. The cleanup scene where Crow goes back to, tie up loose ends. And of course, the invasion at the monastery. In the end, I get that this isn't ranking at the top of any Carpenter lists. And that's fine. A small-scale vampire flick with an anti-hero late into the man's career, it just didn't pop as much as I would have hoped. The gore is great, with Greg Nicotero being a part of the effects team, a solid score by the director himself, a capable villain with Thomas Ian Griffith as Vlcek, and a shit ton of great dialogue. John Carpenter's Vampires is an underrated entry in the director's filmography. And if you could find a way to view it as its own single story, there's a great time to be had. So leave your sensitivities at the door and enjoy this cool and slightly campy ride back to the late 90s.
Want to try garlic? You stand there with garlic around your neck. One of these buggers will bend you fucking over and take a walk up your strata chocolata while he's sucking the blood out of your neck, all right?